Hey everyone, real quick before we start, we've been getting a lot of messages from you guys telling us how much you love what we are doing at Roll Radio. If you could, do us a favor. Leave a review wherever you listen to the podcast. This will allow us to make the podcast even more amazing and to continue bringing you the tremendous guests you have come to expect. Now let's get to the show. As a 20-year-old member of the Air Force, today's guest was a lead gunner searching for roadside bombs and IEDs and was responsible for an entire convoy of his fellow Air Force security members. The experiences he faced in war didn't seem to affect him until he returned home. Missing the brotherhood, the adrenaline, and a sense of purpose, he, like so many veterans, fell into a deep depression. How he climbed out of this depression after an attempted suicide and created his nonprofit Warriors Next Adventure is an incredibly moving and important story. This is a longer episode than most, but today's guest has an amazing journey and a compelling one, and it is vital to helping veterans with PTSD. Here's Roll Radio with Warriors Next Adventure's president and founder, Nick Rahn.
Welcome to Roll Radio.
And we alive. Gary, how are you, sir?
I'm great as always, and I'm really looking forward to today. I think
You're more cheerful than usually.
I've had a lot of coffee.
Is that what?
Yeah, that's it. That's it right there. But before we get started, as always, www.therollradio.com. Take the survey to win a free Fuji gi. We've given away 2 by the time this airs. I think our third one will be out there. It's a gi of your choice. All you got to do is go to the website, take a quick survey, and you are automatically entered. Then listen for us to announce your email address, and you got 72 hours to get back to us, and the gi is yours. So check it out.
Yeah, I want to mention, I don't know what happened in the past couple of weeks, but we got a huge wave of people actually taking the survey and jumping on that gi.
Nice.
So if you haven't yet, you should, because the amount of people in the pool is continuously growing, and obviously the odds are getting lower. But there will be always a winner every single month for several months up front. Fuji's doing an outstanding job partnering up with us. So let's get to the show. Nick, how are you?
Fantastic. Give me a second here. I'm taking the survey I just found out.
Wait, what?
I'm doing well, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I think this is going to be slightly different what we've done in the past. But yet I find it very intriguing. So you and I, we had a conversation a few weeks back. We've been trying to schedule this few times and things come up, and finally we are here and we are able to have this conversation. But your story is very, very unique, and what your organization is doing in the world and community of jiu-jitsu is quite impressive. And we'll get to the moment, but why don't you just give us a very high level, who in the world are you?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Nick. I like long walks on the beach. I'm just some young kid from Minnesota. Grew up in the Twin Cities in the St. Paul area. Joined the Air Force back in 2006. Always wanted to be a cop. And so I joined the Air Force as security forces, which it's hard to explain. It's like an MP. So you're technically a cop, but you're also security. You do all this other BS. Deployed 4 times to Iraq and Afghanistan as a 50 cal gunner on convoys. We did route clearance. So our job was to locate IEDs, the improvised explosive devices that like the Taliban and Al Qaeda was laying out. And so our job was to find these things before we ran them over and got blown up. And so I was the lead gunner in 2008. I was the rear gunner in 2012, 2011, 2012. So it was pretty stressful, I mean, looking for bombs in your 20s.
Explain what does that really mean, because I'm familiar with that, but
Sure.
I think there might be a lot of people, a lot of jiu-jitsu dorks out there who really are not familiar with that part, right? What does it mean to be a lead gunner and the secondary one?
Sure. So being a lead gunner, your responsibilities are you're the truck that's up front. So every single convoy travels with, the Air Force, we do 4 trucks, right? So we have a gunner, a driver, and then we have what's called the TC, a truck commander. And then we usually have like a spare person in the back sometimes. Sometimes called an AG, which is an assistant gunner. So if we were in a firefight, they would hand me my ammo so I could keep reloading and shooting. So the lead gunner is a 50 caliber machine gun. If you don't know what that is, just go ahead and Google it. Those things are awesome. And I always tell people, what's this podcast rated? Is it PG or like?
No, feel
You
free.
can, you
Don't
can,
worry
you
about
can,
it.
you can let it rip.
I have a problem with
Don't hold
using
back.
foul language. I always tell people that if you shoot a 50 cal and you don't get a boner, you're doing it wrong. It's definitely one of the funnest things I've ever done. So our job was to actually, I would ride around with binoculars, and so I would be looking, 50 to 100 feet, 100 meters in front of our convoy while we're driving. And so we would run the main routes of Iraq and Afghanistan, and we would be searching for bombs on the side of the road. So roadside bombs or IEDs, and then also EFPs, explosively formed projectiles. And then there's pressure plates, there's landmines, there's all kinds of stuff that Al Qaeda and the Taliban and whoever else, ISIS, all these, terrorist groups that are overseas, would lay out to try to trap us to blow us up. And so being the lead gunner, your job is, your sole responsibility is every single person in your convoy. Because if you miss something, your teammates die. The chances of you missing something and it not blowing up are pretty slim. We, terrorists, call them what you want, but the people overseas, they're very crafty. They're very smart. They're intelligent. People want to say because they live in literal mud huts that they're primitive. They're super smart. These guys come up with some amazing things. So it sounds jacked up talking about their explosives and saying how smart they are, but it is really clever. They had these things called explosively formed projectiles, which it was like a coffee can, and they would fill the coffee can full of molten copper, and the copper would form into a giant disc. And then they would pack the rest of the coffee can full of explosives like HMEs, homemade explosives. They use like fertilizer and stuff like that to create their own bombs, or like C4. And then they would attach a PIR, a passive infrared sensor. So when your truck drives by and triggers that sensor, kind of like a garage door opener, you know
Yeah, that's
how
what I was
like
thinking,
if you
yeah.
try to lower your garage door, it trips it. So if you trigger that PIR, what happens is they angle that bomb a little bit farther back than it would actually trigger, so it hit the second truck. So as you pass, the first truck hits the PIR, the second truck gets hit with a EFP. And what happens is this giant piece of copper forms into a huge bullet, in the size of like, somebody's head. But the problem is this thing goes through the hull of the armor, but it's the shockwave that actually kills everybody in the truck. Of course, if you get hit with this thing, you're gonna die as well. So on top of that, they would do pressure plates. So like if they don't go off unless you run them over, so it's like a stick, and then you have a rock on both ends, and in the middle there's a piece of copper. When those two pieces of copper touch, when you step on it, it triggers the explosive.
Trigger.
So I mean, I could go on days for days because we took endless classes on explosives and what to look for. So I mean, the first time I did this, I was 20 years old. So you can imagine what
a lot
that
of
does
pressure
to
for a kid.
yeah, especially a kid in charge of 18 people's lives,
Right.
And so
Do you
it was
realize?
almost
Do you comprehend the amount of pressure that is actually on you, or like? I mean, I've never been in service. I've never done what you've done. Forgive my simplicity here and just
No, that's
stupidity,
fine.
I guess. But do you comprehend what responsibility you have at age of 20 doing the job that you're doing?
Beforehand, during the training, it's just fun. We're just driving around shooting. We get to shoot at the mountains and stuff like that. We get to shoot at targets, and we get to practice with explosives, all kinds of fun. So it's really enjoyable. I personally absolutely love my military service. Even when I was over there doing all that stuff, when I was actively overseas searching for this stuff, when I found something, it was like a big reward. It's like I just took that bomb off the streets. How many potential lives did I just save by finding that bomb? And then we get to watch EOD come out. EOD is oh god, brain fart. I've had a few TBIs, so my brain is a little slow sometimes, so I lose the
No
meanings
problem.
of some things. So EOD would come out and
It's like
they
the
would
bomb
actually,
squad, right?
yeah, the bomb
Yeah.
squads. So they would, charge these bombs with C4 and they blow it up. So we get to watch some pretty cool explosions, and it's just fun. It's day-to-day life. When things go off and you don't find them, of course, that just ruins your psyche, but none of this stuff really negatively affects you until you get home. And that's the biggest problem that most veterans have, or active duty people, when you get home from your deployment. Because when you're deployed, you're constantly in a heightened state of, you're in a heightened state, and you're always looking around, you're always on edge. and it's almost like you just, it's almost like you've been slamming energy drinks all day, which is what we do just to stay on edge. Um, and then you go lay down, you go to sleep, you're getting mortared and rocketed at night, and so you're just constantly used to being up here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why so many veterans are adrenaline junkies when they get out of the military, is because they're trying to emulate that adrenaline that we got while we were actually overseas getting shot at and blown up. But when you get home, the biggest issue is everything is safe, everything. So you go to your house, your wife and kids are super happy to see you. um, you're in a nice, safe house. You actually get to sleep in a real bed, take a real shower without having to walk a mile to go to the showers. But the problem is you're not, when you're deployed, you eat with your friends, you sleep with your friends, you train with your friends, you're always with your team, no matter what. So you go back, and next thing you know, you're just surrounded by just your wife and your kids, and it's not good enough. So that's why a lot of military marriages end up failing, is because we miss that brotherhood, right? And spouses can't give us that brotherhood that we desire, right? And so it's hard for military spouses to deal with that, right? Because then they feel like a second hand, which is it makes sense. I get it. I get why a lot of military spouses struggle. Um, but like while you're over there, it's just fun. I mean, the firefights are scary. When you get mortared and rocketed, it's scary because literally out of the sky, you could just boom, done. But you almost become okay with the fact that you're probably going to die, that you just stop caring, which is probably why so many veterans struggle with suicide after the military, because we're just ready to die at any time.
All right, go back a little bit, because there are a lot of deep stuff you're touching on, and
Sure.
I'm just interested to kind of touch on those few things, right? So, describe the relationship that you have between the guys when you deployed, and then obviously there are some. I mean, obviously the family wouldn't exist if there would be a strong relationship between husband and wife and the kids, right? It's just a very different. They're a very different bond,
Mhm.
right? Why is it so difficult to make that switch between the guys and the family? Because that's part of the struggle, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's probably the biggest part of the struggle. For me, it's, there is no bigger passion and there is no bigger love than two brothers at war. Not one military member, you know, would ever disagree with me on that. If they do, then I don't know if they've ever seen combat. Um, so you get to the point where they're your brothers. You literally would die for them. There's guys that I haven't talked to in 10 years that if they called me tomorrow, they need me and I would risk my life. I'd be there. I wouldn't even blink. I mean, it's just because you essentially vow your life for your friends, right? And that's a ticket that's never really punched, unless it actually happens. So that means that you're always there for your friends. You're always there for your buddies, right? They're your brothers, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's family. I kind of let go of my connection with my family, and my family knows. And I've had a lot of conversations with them explaining my psyche, and it's not because I don't love them, but I almost detached completely from my family, like my dad, my mom, all those guys, while I was overseas, because I didn't want to think about them. I didn't have to worry about them. They're
Why?
fine, they're home. Just because, if you spend your time thinking about your family and your wife and everything when you're getting shot at, your head's not in the game.
Yeah, you're not thinking about, you're not living in the present, right? In the
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
You need to be right there, right then, and
So
you can't be thinking about
what
other
you're
shit.
saying is what you're saying is the pressure of the job is so high that you need zero distraction, and a family at that time is a distraction, and as
Yep.
a result you can't focus, and this could cause your life and then dozens of others.
Exactly. You can't be focusing on other things other than what's going on right then and there.
Nick,
I'm worried
forgive me, but
about,
that's a lot of pressure.
yeah. Yeah, that's why so many guys get out of the military. They're so fucked up in the heads, but they don't want to admit it.
Mhm.
And so, again, we'll get into it, but this is the whole point of my nonprofit, is getting veterans to be vulnerable. Have these conversations, talk about your emotions and your feelings, right? Because that stuff isn't a bad thing, right? Vulnerability is courage, and that's what I base my nonprofit off of. Talk about the things that really fuck you up in the head. The things from war, the things that you don't want to admit. You got to talk about those things, because the more pressure you have on top of you, it's like a ship. It's like a sinking ship. Every time you bury something, you put it at the bottom of the ship. Eventually, your ship's gonna sink.
Mhm.
So why there isn't a transition between the service time and the general population, if you will? returning home? Why there isn't something in between? And again, I know nothing about military. I've never served. I know some people who have, but
Mhm.
I mean, this seems to be like a very simplistic question for me. Like, why somebody hasn't done anything about this, and why individuals like yourself have to take the pressure on and responsibility of this arguably the most important task of transitioning from the service to non-service.
Well, a lot of people don't understand. There's if you stop and think about it, I don't know the exact numbers right now, but I think the United States has somewhere around 17 million veterans, and that's not including everybody who's still in the military, active guard, reserve, um, and that's a lot of people to look out for. And another problem is veterans don't want to go get help. That's the biggest issue. The
Mhm.
biggest issue is the veteran themselves avoiding help, avoiding talking about their feelings, avoiding actually going to the VA and filing their VA claim. Because filing a VA claim for medical help is a nightmare.
18 million. I just Googled it.
Yeah.
18 million. Okay. Yeah, I was close.
Mhm.
I think I said 17, 18, something like that.
You did, yeah. You were
All
spot
right,
on.
cool.
Yeah.
Not too far off. Figure I'm working with veterans. I need to make sure I'm actually, doing this right.
Yeah, but I don't
Um,
know. I think what Thomas is saying is that it almost needs to be mandatory. Like when you're done and you're going home, you have to go through some sort of process, right? A
They have a
acclimation process.
program called TAPS. Like so this is what happens when you get home from a deployment, okay? Even if you have like an easy deployment like Qatar or something like that, which Qatar, I was deployed there once, was awful. Um, they ran out of like mint ice cream at least once a week. I still have.
Unacceptable.
There was like a Chili's by the poolside and everything. It was
Oh,
real
I've heard
nice.
you talk about this. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can go next door to the Chili's and
Yeah,
the
just go
pool.
knock on the window, jump out of the pool, they'll bring your food up the pool. It's nice. Qatar is not a bad deployment, and I say that with quotes for the veterans out there. I'm not claiming that Qatar is an deployment. Um, so I mean, it wasn't that bad. But even when you get back from that, you still have to decompress and you have to change back into regular life because when you're deployed, it's very simple. Wake up, go to chow, go to work, don't die, go to the gym, go to chow, shower, go to sleep. That's it.
Mhm.
Nothing different. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. We don't have time to do a lot of stuff. I mean, you can go to school and stuff like that when you're overseas, but it's too hard, right? For me, no. I'm doing convoys and shit. I'm not gonna go fucking study social studies when I get back to my room. I don't want to do that. I want to decompress and actually relax. Um, so the problem is every time you get back from a deployment, you go through like an in briefing, right? So you come back to your base, and what your base does is they put you through like a don't kill yourself, don't beat your wife, don't do these bad things, this stupid shit. But they also say like anybody who's having problems, they actually tell veterans or military members, if you're struggling, go get help. Go to the doctor, do this, do this. But there's a stigma in the military that if you go get help, then you are not fit to fight. Therefore, you are worthless.
Yeah.
So
I think that
there's a
stigma is there for men in particular, and
yeah,
and if you look at older veterans especially, they had nothing, and
especially the
there,
Vietnam era veterans.
yeah, absolutely, and there's hopefully as time goes by, we're getting a little smarter about that, and that can be chipped away at.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, for sure, you get done with something like that, or you're on the police force, you're a paramedic, any of that type of stuff. You're supposed to just be able to let that roll out, roll off your back and keep moving forward. And I think that's really, it puts our veterans in a terrible state.
Yeah. Well, there's a big thing too, like the stigma's there, but at the same time, a lot of guys just don't get help because they're scared of what could happen, right? So, like in Air Force security forces, so like I said, we're like cops, but we're also like infantry stuff overseas. But they don't call it infantry. Don't you dare call it that, because people, the army will get mad. Um, but so we do all kinds of crazy shit. So if you go in and you actually say like, hey, I'm struggling, and they send you to mental health, what they do is they take your gun from you and they literally make you like sweep and clean the squadron, because they think that they're helping you, but really what they're doing is they're secluding you, they're putting you by yourself, they're taking you away from your friends, they're taking your weapon, which is literally your identity, you know, and they're taking everything away from you,
I see
thinking
what
that
you're
they're actually
saying.
helping.
So
Yeah, yeah.
instead of helping
And
you,
everybody
it
knows
actually,
about it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually.
yeah. So yeah, instead of what they think is a helping process is
Mhm.
actually taking the tools and your life, everything that you know and you need away from you, which in that individual's head is making it even worse. So
It
why
makes
in
us
the
feel like we're
world,
being punished.
right? So why would I even admit that I have a problem and
Exactly.
hopefully I can figure it out on my own, right? Is
Yeah,
that
like when
the
I
train of thought?
exactly like when I got back from my first deployment to Iraq in 2008. That's the first one that I was the lead gunner on. There was one time where I missed a potential IED and I lost my shit. It got to the point where mentally I just couldn't fucking handle it anymore. I started blowing up on people. I started yelling at people. I got in a huge argument with another staff sergeant. He put a box of garbage on my chair in my room and a little bit of protein powder or protein juices leaked out on it, and I lost my shit. I almost beat the crap out of him. And I mean, I was a pretty laid back guy, and everyone's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And I just couldn't figure it out. I didn't know what the hell was wrong with me. I was just like, I'm just so angry all the time, and I couldn't figure out what the hell the deal was. Chances are I already had PTSD. There's too much shit that I was already dealing with that I never took care of it because if I said something, I'd lose my gun, lose my 50 cal, I'd lose my spot on the team. And then if those people are out there doing convoys without me and they get hurt, it's my fault,
It was your
right?
Right.
responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whether it is or not, that's where it is in my head.
Sure.
And so every time you come home, I volunteered for all 4 of my deployments because every time I was home, I felt worthless. I felt like there's no reason for me to be alive.
Excuse me. That was my next question. So, well, if this is so bad, why in the world would you volunteer? But you just answered that is because being out there is better than being here and doing nothing, right?
Well, you have a purpose, you have a mission, you have a
Oh,
reason to live,
yeah.
and again, reason why I started my nonprofit. So every time you deployed, your brothers are there, right? You're there with the brothers. You're a part of a mission. You're a part of something bigger than yourself, right? If somebody else dies on your team, it's going to feel like your fault because you didn't protect them, right? And I was a 50 cal gunner, so my job literally was to protect everybody. So if anybody died, it would have been my fault in my head,
Mhm.
whether it is or not. I'm not the one that made them deploy or join the military, but I was charged with their protection. So if they die, it's my fault. And then you get out of the military. Um, my reason for getting out of the military was kind of rough. I got back from Afghanistan in 2012, and I was actively starting to talk. The reason why I talk about how the military doesn't fucking handle mental health well is because I went through the bullshit.
Right.
Um, I said that I was losing my shit. Um, Found out that let me just preface, me and my ex get along just fine now. We have 2 kids together, so like I have no hatred towards her, no hard feeling. But found out that she was cheating on me while I was deployed. We call that being jodied. There's a lot of veterans out there that are laughing right now at the word jody. Um, it sounds jacked up to laugh about something like that, but it happens so goddamn often. Um, so on top of dealing with that, and then we had an Overwatch helicopter get shot down with an RPG right after we left, and so it was our area that we were covering. So of course, all of us were like, what did we do wrong? Who did we miss? Why did we not find these guys before they shot this fucking helicopter down? So that's our fault in our head. So I was already struggling. And so I finally went in and said, I need help. I'm going to fucking kill myself if something doesn't change. And so um, they put me on some back desk bullshit. And I started going to therapy. And again, nothing against overweight people, nothing against females, nothing against people who didn't deploy. This was my mindset at the time. So this is not my mindset now. I just want to preface that. But they put me in with a therapist who was over 400 pounds. It was a 400-pound female who'd never been in the military. So my first thought was, what the fuck are you going to do for me?
Mhm.
Right?
How does she
And
know
there's
anything? Right. That
exactly,
you've
there's
been
a
through.
lot of members are going to agree with what I'm saying here. It's not fair. I will say that now. And I wish I could go back and apologize her because I was pretty fucking rude to her. But I was like, what the fuck are you going to do for me? You've never deployed. You don't know what I'm going through. And so I pretty much threw aside every bit of knowledge that she could have given me because I turned her off before she even said anything.
Mhm.
So they just put me on Zoloft, and I just continued to want to kill myself because that's all the military does is just here's some pills for being a bitch,
Just medicate you. Yeah.
Yeah, it just dumbed me down, and I just felt suicidal every single day, and just depressed. And so I got out of the military because I just, a couple of the guys that my ex had cheated on me with were my friends. So I just felt betrayed. So I got out of the military, and I went down the road that so many veterans go down. I didn't have a job lined up, so I started delivering pizzas. So my pride was non-existent.
Mhm.
You know, I went from having a mission, having a purpose, being a part of something to here's your fucking large pizza, you know. And so I got another job bouncing downtown Minneapolis. And if you guys don't know what Minneapolis is, I mean, the party life down in downtown Minneapolis is great. It's a lot of fun, but drugs are very accessible. That's which I ended up finding out. I was on a pretty destructive path to the point where I would get into fights with people hoping somebody would take out a gun and shoot me or stab me or something. Cause I was
Intentional.
reckless. Yeah.
That's
To
your
the point
train of
where,
thought. And
yeah,
stop me if I'm crossing any lines here, but that's your train of thought. I'm gonna get in a fight, hoping that they will hurt me and I can end this.
yeah. So pretty much intentionally hoping somebody would just fucking end it for me. So I didn't have to do it myself. We
What's the
started doing,
timeline, Nick? Before you go forward, what's the
sure.
timeline before you getting out of the military or getting out of the service to the point where these thoughts are crossing your mind?
Like the next day. Um, I just didn't want to do it anymore. It just sucked. You know, and it's hard too because so many people hear like, "Oh, I felt suicidal," and they're like, "Pussy." They don't realize like, listen, there's some serious psychological shit going on there, you know.
Mhm.
And I wasn't telling anybody. You know, I wasn't like, I'm gonna kill myself and posting it and telling everybody. It was internal. I never told anybody any of this shit, you know, until I started this nonprofit. Um, so I mean, it was literally a month after I got out of the military, I started bouncing, and then I started doing drugs, and I was doing cocaine almost every single night for like 6 months to the point where, you know, we'd be getting ready in the club before everybody got in there, and then we'd be doing lines when we're getting dressed and shit, and people start coming in by about midnight. It's like, all right, who are we gonna fucking fight tonight? You know, who is it? And
Right.
then,
You're almost the problem instead of the
oh yeah,
solution, right? Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah. That there's a lot of people that I possibly hurt that I wish I could find and apologize for, but I was too fucked up. I don't remember who they were. Um, you know, I was not going down a good road. I was a terrible person at the time, and I stop and think about it often. If I'm ever going to make a decision, it's like, you know, are you going to start going down that road again? You know, you got to make the best decision that's going to make you a better person. That's how I live now. But back then, it got so bad to the point where I actually got fired because I got in a fight with two guys, and you know, I had started jujitsu back in 2007 on my first deployment, and I did an MMA fight while I was in the military. And so, I mean, I was a fighter. I knew how to fight pretty well. And I kicked the guy in the face, and I broke his nose, and I pulled him out of the door by his hair, and it was out of line, absolutely. So I got fired, and I got pissed. I told the owner that I was going to beat his ass, and it was just not
Is
a
this
good
the
time in my life.
is this the lowest that you reached at this point?
At that point, yes, but up until now, no. I So like I said, I started training jiu-jitsu in '07 on my first deployment. I trained off and on here and there, only no gi. And then when I started fighting and everything, I only did no gi. Like I never put a gi on until 2014. But while I was in the military, I jiu-jitsu was like the one thing that really kind of gave me it was a positive outlet. I felt good when I was training. Like when I did that first MMA fight in 2009, I did the Carolina Crown 2 at the RBC Center in Raleigh, North Carolina. I fought a Marine from Camp Lejeune, and I won, and I couldn't believe it. Right. So like, you know, my childhood wasn't fantastic. I had a stepdad that was extremely abusive. He used to throw me down the stairs and beat the shit out of me all the time, call me worthless, call me a homo and a faggot. Right. Now I don't like those words, but that's just what he called me. Um, and there was a night where he actually nearly killed my mom. They were riding on a snowmobile and crashed into a snowbank on the ice. So for those who don't know, they're riding on the ice. It's winter time, so I mean you can go on the ice and stuff. And there's a lot of folks down in Texas that say, "What? You're on water?" Ice freezes. So they crash into a snowbank. They crash into a snowbank, and he comes limping in the house, and he's like, "Your mom's dead." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" So I run down there, and I found my mom actually laying there lifeless. You know,
How old are
she
you
was. I'm 32 or 33 now.
At
at
the
that
At the
time? At
time,
that time,
I was 10. I can't do the math. I was 10 or 11, something
okay.
somewhere along those lines. So I go down there, and she's not breathing. And I had watched a bunch of medical shows and stuff, so I like knew how to check pulse and all that stuff. So I ripped her helmet off and I put her head in my lap, And I just do what most people do. They don't know what to do. Just start punching her in the chest, thinking that that's going to help, and it actually fucking worked. She might have only been out for a few seconds or so, but she woke up. She coughed blood all over my face, and there's blood all over me. Her head was bleeding. She ended up breaking every rib on her right side. She punctured her lung in a bunch of spots, and she lacerated her liver. She busted her spleen, her collarbone in a bunch of spots. She had a fractured skull. So I ran inside because I knew like she needs a blanket. She's gonna go into shock. And so I grabbed the phone, called 911. I run down there again, put a blanket on her, and she died probably 3 times that night on the operating table. And it was a pretty rough time. And then after that, for about 6 months, she was in a body cast, and I had to take care of her. I was in 6th grade, so however you're old in 6th grade, like I think 10 or 11. So I had to miss a bunch of school because I had to carry her to the toilet. I had to wipe her ass. I had to learn how to cook. I make a mean pot roast. Just saying, thanks to that, there's a plus side out of everything.
Silver lining. Yep.
I make some damn good food. But the problem was, the day she got that body cast off, she dropped me off at my dad's house. I never saw her again. She never came back. So I had a lot of issues.
Wait a minute, Nick. Hold on a second. Let me wrap my mind around this, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Your mom almost dies. You're at 10 years old. You are told that she's dead. You bring her back over the next 6 months. You take care of her as a young teen. You have to learn how to survive and take care of her. And then the cast is removed. She's mobile. And then she's gone.
Yeah. Later found out she moved to like Indiana or Ohio or some shit. And then she wound up in Florida for a little while. And then I ended up going to Florida to like see her once. And like we hung out and stuff. She got remarried and everything, and then ended up moving again. But there's another reason why she's not in my life. We'll come to that here in a minute. So I struggled with confidence my whole life because my stepdad used to call me a little bitch all the time, say I was going to be worthless. And, as a child, the men in your life literally help shape you. So I already struggled with depression, since I was about 10 years old. I struggled with suicidal thoughts since I was about 10 years old. And it's a rough life, growing up thinking that, like, and then when I moved in with my dad, he was married to an amazing woman, who I call my mom. Her name's Lisa. Lisa was literally like, she is probably the reason why I'm such a nice guy. She was really big at making sure I was always doing the right thing. When I fucked up, she'd tell me, but then she'd also help me navigate to correct it. Amazing woman. Her and my dad divorced, but she's still my mom. I still go over to her house for dinner and stuff like that. She's great. So my issues were confidence, and when I started training jiu-jitsu, I started to realize that I can be confident again. And I'm actually pretty good. I started out pretty damn decent at jiu-jitsu. I had some off and on time while I was in the military. So I probably had trained a total of maybe 3 years while I was in the military out of the 6 years that I was in, if you add up the totals and everything. And then 2012 to about 2014, when I was just running my fucking life into the ground, a buddy of mine reached out to me and said, hey, I know an Air Force guy who started his own jiu-jitsu gym. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. He's a veteran? Fuck yeah, I'm there. So I go in there, and Mark Mortensen from Tracks BJJ, he felt like a father figure the second I met him. He brings me in, we talk about the military, stuff like that for a few minutes, and he just talked shit to me. And that's just how veterans get along. We talk shit constantly. And so I felt really comfortable. I got in the gym. He showed me a few things that I was doing wrong. And I've worn a gi maybe 3 times at this point. So I started as a fresh white belt, and I'd been training for about 7 years off and on. So finally I get in the gym, start training real jiu-jitsu. I'm sure the 10th Planet guys get pissed at that.
We just lost half of the.
No, I love no gi. I think everybody should start in no gi and then go to gi. I think it
But
was
listen,
great.
this had to be really powerful. Like it's like as your story is unfolding, it's really coming together at this point right now where you talk about, because you find somebody who is who's veteran, who understands what you've gone through, right? Two, that bond between you two is probably irreplaceable right now because you connect like brothers, right? And this is what you're seeking by getting out of the service, right? So that
Well,
connection is there. Plus, you've been saying this entire time that jiu-jitsu gives you this mental state, this mental stimulation of kind of separating yourself from that anxiety and the stress of life, and it allows you to really, you know, be confident and control the situation that you find yourself in. So this seems like a perfect environment at that moment.
yeah. I mean, the phrase "jujitsu saved my life" is thrown out there all the time, and I can absolutely say jujitsu saved my life. I didn't want to continue down that road. I didn't want to keep being a piece of shit. I was still with my ex-wife at the time because when we were going through a divorce in 2012 when I was getting out of the military, but she got pregnant with my second child, so I figured I'd do the right thing and, you know, try to make things work. But yeah, that was not a good decision because that our relationship just kept going worse and worse and worse. Um, and then you know, there was some infidelity on both sides after that, and it was just not good. My time at the club was not a good time for anybody. Um, and then right around 2014, it just, you know, I needed a brotherhood. I still felt alone, you know, and jujitsu was giving me that brotherhood that I need. So any veteran out there listening to this that doesn't train jujitsu, jujitsu has equal, if not better, brotherhood in the military. You know, there's guys that I train jujitsu with that I consider closer than anybody ever deployed with for a lot of reasons. You know, you sweat together, you bleed together, you beat the shit out of each other, choke each other out, you know. Um, it's that self-induced anxiety that jujitsu gives you. You learn how to control it because oftentimes people get hit with anxiety and they don't know what to do. You know, with jujitsu, we're literally giving ourselves anxiety. We're forcing ourselves into anxiety, you know, by going bottom side control with a fucking 400-pound brown belt or something, you know. It's like you don't want to be there, but I'm going to put myself there. Um, and so you kind of learn you learn how to control your anxiety. You learn how to control your anger. You learn how to control your thoughts because it's really hard to think about war when you have a 200-pound gorilla on your back, you know, and you're trying to fight him off, and you can't really think about all that stuff. You can't think about an argument with your wife or your spouse or significant other when you have somebody who's much better than you skill wise and you have to constantly be two steps ahead of him. So you don't have time to think about your life problems. You don't have time to think about your anxieties because the only thing you can think about, what's my next move? And that's how I kind of live my life these days. You know, what's my next move? I'm constantly in that state of what's next. And I realized that that is what I need in my life. You know, in jujitsu, it gave me the out that I needed of the shitty life that I had, and I decided to start forming a better life. You know,
Do you
things
think
started to
that
get better.
I just want to say, you know, you mentioned being lonely a second ago, and I think, you know, with abandonment from a parent, something that I've gone through, and then an awful stepdad and things like that, I think you become very secluded and
Yeah,
very lonely. And you go into the military. I think maybe a lot of people looking for direction. You then you're not lonely anymore, right? Because you're
yeah,
bonding under these extreme circumstances, and then you're at home again, and you're lonely again, and all that stuff that you went through before you signed up is resurfacing, right? And now you
yeah.
really don't have a way through it. And then you find somebody who's got, you know, a common background, at least Air Force. And I think that I'm hoping I'm right on this, but I think a lot of that loneliness, not only the anxiety and everything you've got to work through in the moment, but I think some of that loneliness goes out the window too. And you're now bonding with people again. And maybe that can help people through it.
Well, our gym is very laid back. We don't have a lot of the traditions of jujitsu, you know, with calling your professor, and we're very laid back. Like a lot of the rules or what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of the
The
jujitsu
tradition.
traditions do, yeah, they do carry on, but like we go in the gym, we talk shit to each other, we joke around, you know, randomly walk up to each other and put each other in a choke or something like that, like just hug each other. I don't like people touching me. The last thing in the world I ever want is somebody
Hmm.
touching me.
Hmm.
But I go into jujitsu and like dudes would just walk up and like put their hands down my shirt and like grab me and stuff and just laugh like, "Hey, what's up, man?"
So
You know, it just
why?
doesn't matter. It's
Wh-
safe.
Why why is that so different? right? I'm sure a lot of people listening to it, and they're gonna think now, like, I mean, the Nick dude is completely crazy. He's out of his mind. This is
No,
like a
it is.
huge contradiction. Like he's just
Most
you
people
know,
think I'm crazy. It's all good.
well, maybe so, but I'm just saying, right? This is a huge contradiction here. Like, from one
Sure.
side, you say, "Listen, I don't want anybody touching me. I want my space. This, I'll keep your distance, right? I know my limitations." But then
Yep.
you get into this crazy sport hobby, whatever you want to call it, where we're half naked men rolling on each other, rolling with each other, sweaty for hours. They talk shit the entire time, and it's okay.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Why jiu-jitsu is so different?
Because we train jujitsu together. You're my brother. You have certain allowances that normal people don't. If anybody trains jujitsu, you see a fucking Gracie Baja shirt out in public, or like a DD214 shirt or a Fuji shirt, you want to talk to those guys because, like, hey, where do you train, man? Tell me you haven't just seen somebody in a jujitsu shirt or a jujitsu hat or something like that. And just wonder, hey, I wonder where he trains. Even if you don't say something, that's the first thought. Like,
Yeah.
how long has he been training? Is he a blue belt, purple belt, whatever?
True story.
Yeah.
I don't think I sold this on the show, so I'll say it now. But this is true story. A couple years ago, pre-COVID, I'm at the airport. I'm flying out to California,
hmm
and I'm standing in the line for the water fountain, right? And I'm filling up the water, doing my thing, right? And I turn around, the dude behind me has a jiu-jitsu t-shirt. I was like, "Hey, what's up, man? Hey, what's up?" And then so we start talking, and we going on, and then I hear my airplane, my flight is being called out. And I was like, "Dude, I gotta go. This is my flight. Blah, 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 I gotta go." And I didn't even ask him his name. I was like, "What's your name?" And we quickly text each other, exchange numbers. This is like we didn't know the name. We just kept talking for like 20
Yeah.
minutes, and it just flew by. But like, I feel like this only happens in jiu-jitsu, and I'm probably pissing off half of the swimmers and football guys, baseball guys, and CrossFit guys. But like, I feel like this only happens in jiu-jitsu, where you can see somebody across the street in a jiu-jitsu t-shirt. It's like, "Hey, what's up, man? What are you training? How you
Yeah.
been training?" "Oh, I see the ears." "Yeah." What's your favorite submission?" Blah, blah, blah. It's only like, I don't know. Am I wrong on this?
No,
No,
I mean,
not at all.
it goes everywhere. Like I said, I was in California competing for Jeff Butler's tournament a couple weeks ago. It was actually my first tournament as a purple belt. I just got promoted a couple months ago. And I won my first match, which was awesome. Woohoo, that's for me. But it was so cool going in there, in the place that we were at. I can't really say. I'm sure most people know, but I can't actually say it. But the place that we were at, like, it was so interesting, right? The group of people that we were surrounded with. And Dean Lister walks in, and I got to talk to Jeff Butler and Chris Lieben, which is one of my MMA heroes. I loved him. Everybody talks shit about Chris Lieben because he cried a lot in UFC, in the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, that's raw. Like, that's him being 100% himself. How many of you fuckers are holding shit in? He's not. That's why I always loved him, is because he's raw. He's open. He lives, like, his emotions are on his sleeves. I love those people. I love and appreciate those kind of people because they're living their real life, not the whole Instagram life. Like, hey, everything's great. And then you go back
Hold
to
on a
hating
second.
yourself.
Instagram is not real.
But yeah, no, it's jujitsu just did amazing things for me, and then the problem was um my relationship was still shit, and we just kept hating each other. And then 2015 rolled around, which was quite honestly my worst year ever. Um, Found out my youngest daughter, she's 8 now, but she's autistic, and so we actually got the actual results back. And now that was 2015. She still doesn't talk. She's nonverbal. She communicates through, she's got these like stickers and stuff with labels and everything, or she just throws shit at you. So you're like, okay, do you want some juice? Like, you just threw a cup in my face. So
Fill it. Yeah, fill it,
you
Dad.
just gotta laugh, it's whatever. So I just found out that she was autistic then. So it was already starting to go down, and I had struggled really bad with alcohol. So this whole time I had been an alcoholic, drinking constantly. And 2014, when I started training jujitsu, I showed up to jujitsu one day and I smelled like a brewery. You ever had a guy who drinks too much and he comes in, he's like, oh shit. Like, I think I just got drunk
Those
off your
Sunday
smell.
morning open mats. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just like, you know what? I smell like shit. I can't perform the way I want to. So I slowed down with drinking. I didn't quit, but I slowed down. And then 2015, when I found out about my daughter, I started drinking extremely heavily, but I stopped going to jujitsu. And noticed a huge just digression in my mental health. I started just sitting in my garage. I had a boat in my garage and I had hidden compartments with alcohol inside there. So I was the only one that knew about it. So I could go drink whenever I wanted and nobody would know. Um, I had a couple other places in my house too that I hid some stuff. Um, so I was constantly drinking. I'd show up to work, you know, hungover. I'd never drank before work because I worked for the Minnesota State Patrol. I was a 911 dispatcher. So on top of that, I have all the shit going on at dispatch too. That is a whole nother storyline. Um, and so it just kept getting worse. And then July came around, and I actually went through my ex's phone and found out she not only was cheating on me, but she was stealing money from me too. And I kind of just got, I lost it. And so everything came back, like to my stepdad, to the stuff in the military, everything, and my life just crumbled. And I decided to take a trip up to the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota. It's an area where you can only kayak and canoe, so like no cars, boats, nothing. So the only way to find you is to kayak or take a helicopter and rappel down. So I decided I was going to go out there and I was going to kill myself. Damn dogs! I just ordered some geese from Pakistan and they just delivered them right now. So
Well, at least he knows when to get
Yep.
excited.
I know, right? It's a
What
good
kind
thing,
of
it's
dog
good
do
for
you
you.
have? Well,
So I have Buddy, the one bark. Hey, come here, Buddy, come here. Okay. She's a pit bull, Springer Spaniel, and Saint Bernard mix. She's gorgeous. And then my girlfriend just moved in. She's got a Rottweiler. So they're goofy
Are they
dogs.
feeling each other out there?
They're doing okay. They get along pretty well.
Okay.
Food's around the Rottweiler gets a little bitchy, but it's just because she's fat and she doesn't want to lose her food.
So you
So
clearly,
anyway, sorry
so
about
you
that, guys.
clearly have
No,
a
it's fine.
so you clearly have a plan. I mean,
Yeah.
and correct me if I'm wrong because I want to make sure we get the story straight. But your plan is this is it. Like I'm
Mhm.
going to the place where nobody can find me, and if they will find me, it's going to be a while from now, and nobody will know where I'm at. There's no return from this. Nobody's going to accidentally drive by. I mean, this is
Yep.
very strategic plan.
Yeah, I didn't want anybody to find me. Like I said, I work at the state patrol, and they actually use our helicopter for these kind of rescues, so I know how it works. So I gave my buddy a map. If I don't come back on Monday, this is where I'll be. And I don't think he,
Does he know why?
I don't think he knew, but he's a veteran, and he knew I was acting kind of weird. And he asked me if I was okay. I said, yeah, I'm good. Even though he asked, I still had my plan, and I was going to do it. So that was like the best 5 days of my life, though, because I decided I'm going to take 5 days and I'm really going to think about this. And so I didn't bring any food with me because I figured I'm fucking going to die anyway, so who cares? So I just went fishing. I caught fish. I make some damn good fried fish, even over a campfire. And so I just went fishing, hung out. I stayed up late, watched the stars. It was beautiful. But the whole time I was there, I actually made a biography. I recorded myself talking about everything. I talked about the war. I talked about my ex. I talked about my mom. I talked about everything. All the shit in my life that led me to that point. And essentially, that was my suicide note. So whoever found me, what I did was I took my phone and put it in a Ziploc bag, and I put that in a Ziploc bag so the phone won't get damaged. And I put it next to my body with all my stuff. And so I was just sitting here thinking. After that 5th day, I went out to an island that was big enough so the helicopter could actually land because there was no trees or anything like that. So instead of having to rappel and risk other people's lives, they could have just landed the helicopter and loaded my body up. So it was a pretty good plan.
Well, something
it
went
didn't.
wrong, apparently,
Yeah.
because you're talking to us today. So,
Yeah,
and this is, I think, the pivot of the story.
it absolutely is.
So, what happened?
So I sat there for probably about an hour, debating, and it was a beautiful day, gorgeous. Sun was out. There was no clouds in the sky. There's an eagle flying above, which is actually really cool. It's probably the one thing I remember the most about this. But I finally just said, fuck it. And I took my 9mm pistol and I put it up to my head, right up to my temple, and I pulled the trigger. I've loaded well over 5,000 rounds of ammo because I like to load my own ammo. And I've never had a malfunction. Not once. Not one of my bullets didn't go off except for one. So I heard the click, and I remember everything just going white. My eyes were closed, and it was weird because I held my breath the whole time. I let out my first breath and I opened up my eyes, and I've never seen such vivid colors, like the most beautiful blue in the sky. Like the water was just gorgeous. It was reflecting off the trees. The trees were dark green. It was just absolutely beautiful, and it felt like the most euphoric thing I've ever felt in my. I thought I was in heaven. I thought I died. I didn't think I was alive, just because of how good I felt. Um, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I started to take deep breath, and then the anxiety came, and I just started bawling, and I couldn't believe what I just fucking did. And I was trying to figure out, like, I was like, I thought death would hurt a lot more than this. Um, so I looked down at my gun, and I dropped the magazine. I pulled the slide back, and I pulled the bullet out. So for those of you who don't know how a bullet works, you have a casing, and then on the bottom there's a primer. What happens is the hammer goes forward when you pull the trigger. It hits that primer. The primer makes a spark, and it lights the black powder inside the cartridge, and it shoots the bullet through the chamber. Now, what had happened was the primer was struck, but the primer was a dud. So that means there was no spark when it was struck. You think of the logic of it. I was kayaking for a few days. I had my gun on my hip the whole time, so chances are some moisture got into the chamber, right? So it took me years to actually go through the reality of what actually happened, right? I'm not a religious person. Even then, I'm not a religious person, but I do believe in meaning. What is the meaning of this? But I also believe that it's up to us to determine what the meaning is. So I just decided, well, fuck. I loaded the magazine into the gun again, and I pulled the slide back, and I just stared at it for a minute, and I shot all 19 rounds off into the lake. All 19 rounds went off, except for the one that was supposed to go through my fucking head. So I kayak back. I go to the first burger joint I could find. I got a giant burger because I'm fuck it. I'm hungry as shit. I gotta eat well in my new life. And then my first phone call was to my ex-wife and said, "Hey, we're getting a divorce. I'm done. I'm not putting myself through this shit anymore. I want to be a better person, and I don't think you're part of that program." My next call was to my jiu-jitsu coach because I hadn't talked to him in a while, and he was actually going to Brazil to get his black belt. And so I called him. I was like, "Hey, Mark, I'm going to Brazil with you." He's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, fuck it." So later on that week, I ordered our tickets. I paid for his ticket too, just because I was like, you know what, fuck it. I want this to be something good. I want something good to come of this. And I couldn't figure out where my path was. So we go to Brazil. It was amazing. That was like maybe 2 months later. I moving into my mom's house, and I'm sleeping in a basement and shit like that. But still, like, I was still depressed. I was still sad. Things were still rough for me, right? So it's not just like an instantly happy kind of thing, right? It took me years to finally really change things. So I started fighting again shortly after that. So this was July 2015. December 2015, my ex-wife is the reason why I quit fighting, because she didn't like it. She didn't like jiu-jitsu, so I stopped doing it. So I quit for her, and I was like, you know what, fuck her. I'm going to fucking be the best jiu-jitsu fighter in Minnesota. And I was like, I'm going to be the best one. And so my goal was to submit every single one of my opponents. So my first fight back, I was 1-0.
By fight, you mean MMA?
Yeah, MMA fight. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to be the best. And so my first fight back was actually that December, and I won in 1 minute and 13 seconds with my signature armbar after lighting his face up. And so it was a bloody mess, but 1 minute and 15 seconds of pure fucking anger and rage that I got to take out on him. And I just felt reborn again. It was such a great feeling. And then I kept training. I broke my neck in 2016. So there's another downfall, but I decided, you know what, fuck it. I'm not going to let this take me down. Right about that time, I started practicing Buddhism, right? So I'm not a Buddhist because I fucking swear too much and I like meat. So I don't think I could ever give that up. But I like the way of life, right? Because a lot of it has to do with acceptance and understanding and learning about who you are as a person. And so I didn't know who the fuck I was. So through jiu-jitsu and through Buddhism, I figured out who Nick Rahn was. I figured out who I wanted to be. It took me years to realize what my actual mission was, but just learning who I was a good help. So they told me that I'd never fight again. And I'm like, bullshit, I'm going to fight again this year. And so I had surgery in April 2016, and I fought in August 2016, one fight of the night by submission.
Jeez.
Go back.
That's crazy.
Go back.
Yeah, it's crazy
Because
shit, I know.
I think everybody who's listening right now,
June,
they
July,
just,
August, 4 months later.
I
Yep,
think
4
everybody
months
just
after
missed the
surgery.
point that you broke your neck. Okay, give me a couple more sentences on this because
Yeah,
I
sure.
already know what happened. But this
Yeah.
is important part. Explain what happened. What was the injury like? And then the 4 months is gonna just
Yeah, so we were training one day, and somebody had me a head and arm choke, but I was topside north south, and so I tried to jump and spin out of it, but when I did that, my body turned, but my neck didn't. So my C5 and C6 vertebrae were completely twisted. They said it was like damn near a 1/4 inch turn, and so it was fucked up. And then one of the vertebrae was cracked, and then also my disc in between the two popped out and pinched off my right C6 nerve completely. So I lost probably 1.5 inches of mass on my right bicep from the atrophy, and I couldn't squeeze my hands together. I couldn't lift a 10-pound dumbbell. That's how much it fucking sucked. That happened in probably February. So it took me 2 months to actually get surgery because I was trying to fucking not go that route. But I could, I was walking around like, I could barely lift my head up. I was a robot. I couldn't turn my neck. I was literally swiveling just to turn and look. I could barely drive. Like working sucked, and it was just excruciating pain. And so finally, after 2 months, I gave up and said, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna get surgery." So they rotated my disc back. They didn't fuse my neck, surprisingly, but then they clipped off a piece of the bulge, and I woke up and I had no pain. And then I coughed and I cried for about 30 minutes. It was fucking terrible. Just that pain of my neck expanding when I coughed. Holy shit. That was rough. So yeah, and then I did my own physical therapy because I told them, listen, I'm going to do this myself. So have you guys ever heard of epigenetics?
I have not. No.
So epigenetics is the science of your environment, right? So do you guys know what a hypochondriac is?
Oh, absolutely.
Person who thinks themselves sick.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought is, if you can think yourself sick, why can't you think yourself healthy? Why not? Right? So I had already been studying Buddhism. And so I stumbled upon epigenetics at the same time. And I put 2 and 2 together. It's like epigenetics is literally the science behind Buddhism. And then there's plenty of neuroscientists and everything that have actually made this connection. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to focus on healing my neck. I will fucking fight again this year. They were telling me it was 18-month recovery and I'd never fight again. I'm like, bullshit. Watch me. And so I bought some books on like spinal cords and everything and how injuries heal. And so I started reading about, spinal cord. I started reading about, healing, like the way that bones heal. So I bought a bunch of anatomy books and shit. And then I also started reading a bunch of different stories about like Dr. Joe Dispenza, who literally helped heal his back through epigenetics, right? So he's a scientist. You guy's a genius. And so I started taking a lot of these methods on top of that, doing my own physical therapy. I meditate every single night. But when I meditated, I focused on my neck healing. And I focused on being better. I focused on actually being able to walk properly and being able to turn my goddamn neck because it sucked.
Mm-hmm.
Like
That's the worst
5
part of
months
it.
not being able to look left.
And you kind of need it for the fighting that you want to do, right?
I know, right? So just randomly, like one day I woke up and I was like, I feel good. They put staples in my neck. So there was 12 staples digging into my spine. I hated it. And so one day I grabbed the pliers and I started ripping them out. I was like, I can't do this
Wait a minute.
anymore.
There was outside just staples into your.
Yeah, so what they did, they stapled my neck together because there's about a 6-inch scar on the back of my neck from when they cut my neck open to do the surgery. And then they just stapled it. And so after about a month, I'm like, you know what, this is healed good enough. Fuck it. So I ripped those staples up because I felt it grinding in my bones and I just couldn't do it anymore, man. And so I started putting like a CBD rub on it at the same time because that's supposedly supposed to help.
Hold on. How in the world do you remove staples out of your neck?
You just pull them out with pliers.
Like, do you have a mirror? Like, what's your
Yeah.
process?
So I was holding the mirror like
It's
this.
I'm
Like
just
when you
curious.
shave your own neck, right? When you're giving yourself a trim back.
There you go.
I can envision it. I can see it. I don't think
know,
I
right?
could do it, but I can
just sitting
see
here
it.
like, yeah, I got that one.
I don't want to break it up from the serious story here, but I'm just curious. How the hell do you?
Yeah, so I ended up going in after 4 months, this was after about 2 months after my surgery, and I go in to get the staples removed, and I'm like, so
About
I
that.
didn't like those staples, so I took them out myself, and they did an MRI and they did an X-ray and all that shit, and so the neuro doctor comes in and sits me down. He's like, "What the fuck did you do?" I'm like, "Oh, what'd I do? He's like, you're
thinking something
100%
wrong,
healed.
right?
Yeah, I thought I was in trouble. But he's like, you're 100% healed. And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, your spine is exactly where it needs to be. Your bulge is gone. He's like, the scar tissue is healed faster than anybody I've ever seen. I was like, well, how old are your patients usually? Probably in their 50s and 60s, right? You know, at this time I was 20. I don't remember. This was 2016. So however the hell old I was back then. I'm 33 right now. So whoever's good at math, go ahead and figure it out. And so I was just like, I told you. What did I tell you before my surgery? That I will fight again this year. And so they actually medically cleared me after 2 months of surgery to start training again. 2 months after that, I fought. And I won fight of the night.
That's wonderful.
It's the power of belief, my friends. The power of belief. If you truly believe that you can do something with your life, if you actually write out a plan and you follow that plan and you truly believe it, you can do it.
Is that part of your 6-point plan?
Yeah, it's part of my 6 principles.
Yeah.
So
talk about those, because that's
Yeah,
I think that
for sure.
that kind of wraps up the whole story of yours, which I'm gonna have to listen to this episode because
I'll send you the article
Yeah.
too.
I like to think that I've been through some shit in my life, but then I hear a story like this and I'm like,
No, and it brings it
dude,
back
man.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not even going to
No.
bring up any of my horror stories.
Yeah, I
The
need
biggest
to stop
key
lying
is-
every day.
Well, the biggest key is humor. I mean, you notice I laugh a lot, even talking
Yeah.
about terrible shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I'm helping my veterans, the first thing I tell to a lot of these guys is humor is the lube for healing, right? Because that's
Nice.
kind of gross on its own. But I mean, if you think about it, you know, if you just laugh more, you know, life is really better. It's because you can literally choose to be happy. You know, it's not just like you wake up, oh, I'm happy. No, it's a series of choices. You have
There's
to
a lot of
actually
work
make.
that goes into it. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a hard choice though, but also anything is a hard choice because every single journey begins with one step. So if you wake up and say, I'm going to be fucking happy, you have to continue to make that choice every single day. You're going to have your down days. Sure. We're fucking human. But-
Let me challenge you on this, because I'm
Sure.
confident that there is a large percentage of people listening to this, what you're saying right now, and they're going to say, but my life is hard. But you don't know my story. Because I have this. Or
I hear that a lot.
Days are not long enough, and that will follow, and about 1,000,001 excuses. And
Mhm.
what do you say? What
To
do
the
you say to this?
excuses?
Yeah. What do you say to all this? Like,
I say that if somebody says that they can't just choose to be happy, they're 100% correct. Because you have to choose. If you want to sit here and tell me that you can't just choose to be happy, you are absolutely correct. 100% right. Usually those who say they can and those who say they can't are 100% correct. You limit yourself. The only limitations in your life are you. Not one person can tell me what I can and can't do. I'm the only person that can tell me what I can and can't do. And if I don't believe it, I usually listen to some motivation, and whether it's like Tony Robbins or, Tony Robbins is great. I love listening to stuff, but there's just books, education. You got to teach yourself. You got to learn. You have to expand your brain constantly, right? I probably spend 20 hours a week listening to audiobooks. So I probably listen, I'd say 5 or 6 audiobooks a month. Some of those are like 8 hours long or something like that. But it's not just self-help books. It's just basic education, like education on taxes, education on like investing in houses, or education on real estate, stuff like that. I'm constantly learning something that's going to help me in the future. So eventually I'm getting into real estate and starting to buy rentals and stuff. So that's the only reason why I talk about that. I don't just listen to real estate stuff just because it's interesting.
I was about to say,
no,
you
I'm
have
not
some
that weird.
interesting choices, but okay, we're not going to pass any judgment right now.
Yeah, no, like one of my favorite books is Buddhism Plain and Simple, right? I'm not trying to get people to be a Buddhist. That's the last thing I'm doing. But what it does, it really teaches you that everything's a choice. Everything. Forgiveness, it's a choice. If you really truly forgive somebody for the bad things that have happened in your past, you're the only reason why your life goes to shit, because of the choices that you make, right? So when I was an alcoholic because I was a dumbass and I chose to drink alcohol all the time. That was my fault. It was nobody else. Nobody else put that bottle in my hands. So it's all about responsibility.
But when you're deep in that position, and I'm
Sure.
sure you can relate to this, I'm sure it's not easy to say, well, I'm going to be happy today.
No, fuck no. It's a really hard decision.
Yeah, I go back and forth about that a lot, because I do feel at some point people can be broken to the point where there is no return for them. I think that can happen. I can also accept the fact that maybe I'm wrong about that, but it is incredibly hard to turn things around for yourself. But like you said just a few minutes ago, the only person that can do it is you. You're
Yeah.
nobody can do it for you. Absolutely not. And just to be able to make that choice every day is work, and obviously you're putting in the work, right? So
Mhm.
how do you how do you make it more good moments than bad? How do you get, more days of good times than bad times?
And let me pivot off of that,
Sure.
because one of the things that Nick, that you said is, first phone call was to my ex. Second phone call was to my jiu-jitsu instructor. And for a reason, I chose these two people to make the phone calls in that order, because I knew these were individuals that I wanted or I didn't want to surround
Mhm.
myself with, right? So they often say that your surrounding is more powerful than your will.
Your
Who you
surrounding
surround
is
yourself
everything.
with, it's everything, right? So
Yep.
you don't have the solution to all the problems or obstacles that you're facing at this particular time, but what you can do is probably s- create an environment where
Mhm.
you are more or less successful, and that choice is yours, right? Do you want to hang
Environment
out
is
with guys who are drinking
everything.
all the time, or do you want to hang out with the guys who train and continuously troubleshoot and stimulate their minds,
Mhm.
keeping it straight?
Well, you are a product of your environment. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And if you're a shitty product of your environment, then maybe you should think about changing your environment, right?
Maybe your environment's shitty, right?
Yeah, and all of these things that have happened in my past are the reason why I came up with my 6 principles, which I'm actually writing a book on because I felt like that short article was not good enough.
Mhm.
I'm like 6 chapters in right now, so I hope within the next like 4 years I can finish that thing. We'll see. Um, so my 6 principles are, I truly believe that this isn't going to work if you don't apply it. Nothing works if you don't apply it, right? Somebody
Mhm.
can give you medicine that's going to make you better. If you don't take it, you're not going to get better, right?
Correct.
Everything's a tool, right? You are the one that needs to do it. So I truly believe that my 6 principles, if somebody took these 6 principles and applied it to themselves every single day for a year, I promise you your life will be better. I promise you. I've been giving these principles to veterans for years, right? So um, I started off with how shitty my birth mom was, right? That she's still alive. I know where she's at. She actually lives with my older sister. But there's a reason why she's not in my life. There's a reason why she is no longer a part of my life. I no longer have her as my mother. My stepmom is my mom. Now, a lot of people say, like, how the fuck could you just push out your mom? Right? Well, how many people's moms literally told other people that they wish they would kill themselves? How many people's moms abandoned them after their son took care of them for 6 fucking months and then didn't even tell them I'm not coming back? Right? I found out where she was and we hung out a few times after that, but it was always bad experiences. When I was going through my divorce in 2015, she actually started telling people that I was a pig and I was a worthless piece of shit and all this, blah, 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 blah. I was like, do you even know why I left? Right? Do you even know what I've been going through? And at the time, I hadn't told anybody that I tried to kill myself. Nobody knew. And she was going around telling people she wishes I would just drive off a cliff, telling people that she wishes I would just kill myself when literally weeks before that I tried.
Mhm.
So I decided that, you know what? The people that you surround yourself are so important because I noticed that every time I'm hanging out with my jujitsu guys, I'm happy. I feel good. Every time I go home and I'm around this woman who treats me like shit, who I treat like shit because we just have a bad relationship, I feel horrible. So I needed to remove one person and I needed to hold on to the other. So the first principle is, you have to look at who you have. Who do you have? Right? Who do you have around you? Right? There's a bunch of different ways you can say what the actual principle is, but the focus is who are the people that you surround yourself with. So my jujitsu coach is what I call a shooting star, right? What does a shooting star do in the sky? It's a dark sky. You just shooting star that shoots out. It brights up the sky, right? It gives you a trail, someone to follow. It's somebody who props you up and actually makes you feel like a good person. Even when you do something wrong, they say, "Man, that was stupid," but it's not the end, right? You can do better. They push you, they encourage you. There's somebody who makes you feel good. And everybody's jiu-jitsu coach is that person, because they're constantly trying to teach you how to be better, how to fix that mistake. how to stop getting rear naked choked, constantly, or getting caught in triangles, which is my fucking downfall. Um, I bait people too much. Um, so I realized that he was my shooting star at the moment. And at the moment, I felt like he was the only one. So I was going to cling on to him. Right. And he led me to being ranked number 3 welterweight MMA fighter in Minnesota in 2018. Going from a kid who hates his life to 2018 being ranked number 3 in Minnesota, I'm pretty fucking proud of that.
You should be.
Yeah. I ended up getting a TBI on that fight June 1st, 2018, and I quit fighting, but that's beside the point. It's actually what led me to so you also have your black clouds, right? So the people, the negative people in your environment, you also need to think of that. My mom was a black cloud, right? Every time she was involved with my life, I felt like shit. She made me feel bad. People who actually gaslight you into making you feel like you're wrong, or you feel bad, or they don't support you behind their back, like fuck that guy, because we all have those people that we know don't talk very well about us when we're not around. You need to get rid of those fucking people, even if they're family. This is something that pisses off a lot of people. Like, family is everything. What the fuck is family? Is it somebody who tells you you're a piece of shit, or is it somebody who just out of nowhere just says, "Hey man, I'm really rooting for you. Like, no matter what you need, I'm fucking there for you." Right? That's family. I don't give a shit if we're the same blood or not. We're all human, right? That's family. Humans, the human race, we're all the same, right? Just because one person may have the same bloodline as us doesn't mean they're family, right? Those brothers and sisters that I fought with overseas, I'd die for them. I still would. But now it's my jiu-jitsu brothers, right? Every time we go to a tournament and one of my guys gets tapped out or like gets like an illegal move, I want to fucking beat that other guy. Obviously, I wouldn't do that because it's jiu-jitsu and that would be douchey. But like I look at the other guy, like I want to choke him out for my partner. That pisses me off. My guy lost, damn it. And like I just want to encourage them to be better. Anybody at my gym will tell you no matter what, I will encourage the shit out of every single person there. When they do something good, I'm the first person to high five them. When I get choked out by a lower belt, the first thing I do is I stop, I sit back. I was like, "You earned that." I was like, "You did that. You know that, right? I didn't let you do that because I have a strict rule. I do not let anybody tap ever. So if you tap me, you earned it. You did it right." Right. And it's not a douchey thing to say. A lot of people think it's a douchey thing, but it's like, listen, I want you to get better. What am I giving to you by letting you submit me? That's not going to help you. So when my guys submit me, I'm the first one to high five. I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. Good job. That was awesome. Don't do that shit again. So it's all about the people who you have around you can really help you excel your state of mind. Right. So the label is the 6 principles to excel your state of mind, because once you excel your state of mind, you can absolutely achieve anything in life. The second principle is you have to think about, what do you have, right? So if I were to ask you guys, what do you have? What do you think I mean by that?
I'm guessing you're not talking about material items.
I'm not.
Right. Yeah.
So you got to think like, what do you have, right? Not just materialistic things, but what do you have here? What skills, what abilities do you have, right? What do you have here? Your heart, right? What do you have? You have to stop and think. I have the ability, after years of being a 911 dispatcher, my ability to figure shit out is amazing. I can figure shit out. That's something that I don't, it's not bragging, it's propping yourself up, saying, "Hey, you're good at this." I'm good at figuring out what the problem is. If there's a problem, I will solve it. If I can't solve that problem, I guarantee you I know a few other people that can help me solve that problem or do it for me, one of the two. But the thing is, I have the drive to actually make sure that problem gets solved. Let go of some pride and actually reach out to somebody and say, "Hey, I need help." And that comes with your mental health as well. If I don't have the ability to heal myself, like I go to therapy every Tuesday. Every Tuesday I talk to my guy.
And I think this is deep
helps.
because a lot of people don't think about the intellectual property as an item to have. They don't acknowledge that as value, as benefit of themselves, right?
It's because you can't see it.
Right, you can see it, you can touch it. It's not tangible.
It's not material.
Yeah. So you got to stop and think like, what do you have with yourself, right? And if you feel like you don't have any value, guess what? Now you know. Go find how you can be valuable, right? Find a job that you think you can be valuable. Learn a skill that you think is valuable. Take a trade school. Do something, because I don't care how old you are. You're never too young to learn something new.
It's not even that. I think everybody has a skill set.
For
I
sure.
don't care what you think of yourself as an individual, but everybody has a skill set that they can benefit somebody else. And it could be something mediocre, like smiling, or mediocre, forgive me. It's something simple, I should say.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so smiling, jokes, being a comedian, having good personality, or something really skilled, like being a lawyer, or being a medical field, or whatever the hell it might be.
Mhm.
These things will vary, but the point is you can always contribute to somebody else, or maybe even to larger community. And I think especially that is really powerful when it comes being on a mat and training jiu-jitsu, because I often say the mat is the equalizer. This
Yep.
is where you're going to find a guy who is a plumber, and there's another one who is a lawyer, and there's another one who is a doctor, and there's a guy who doesn't have a job. But the point is, on the mat, we are all equal. We all
Yeah.
equal. We all
Usually the
learn
guy
same
without the
thing.
job is the best one because all they do is train
All he does
jiu-jitsu.
is train.
There's that. There's that.
Well, that's why these principles they combine together, right?
Mhm.
So if you don't have somebody telling you that stuff, you need to change the people that you hang out with, right?
Yeah.
So if you feel worthless and you go on feeling worthless and people around you know that, and they don't do something to try to make you realize your worth, you need to change your environment. That means changing the people in your environment. too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know?
Do you have these somewhere online where people can actually go and read more about this, or is this accessible? These
Yeah.
principles and the thoughts that you're putting, behind all of this.
Yeah, so I wrote a short article about this. Like I said, I'm writing a book to actually expand on this much more,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like that short article does not give it justice, and I feel like I can do a lot more presentation on that and actually give some more science to it too. But if you go to warriorsnextadventure.com and you go to the blog, at the bottom of the page there's blogs, but also at the top of the page is a blog link, and then you have to scroll down to the 6 principles to improve your state of mind. Or if you Google, Warriors Next Adventure, 6 principles to improve your state of mind, it'll pop up.
We'll make sure
the
that we put a link to this in the show notes.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
anybody
I'll
who
send
wants
you
to
it.
actually dig deeper into this, they're going to have the opportunity to do that. So
Yeah, and I want to, switch it up just a little bit before we run out of time. We haven't talked about Warriors Next Adventure at all, and I think it's super important because it is going to tie everything together today, right? Your whole life story and what you're doing now, and what so many people that have gone through similar circumstances
Sure.
to you have gone
Well,
through.
these 6 principles are the basis of the nonprofit. So the third, I'll run through them real quick. The third principle is there anything you can do about your situation right now? So many people talk about anxiety, right? And so this ties into jiu-jitsu too. So many people have so much anxiety because they want to they have all the shit they got to get done and they can't do it, right? So time is time is literally sometimes the only answer, right? So if you can't do anything about your situation right now, you physically can't stand up out of your chair and go do something, then you need to stop and you need to write down a list of things that are the most important, a list of the things that are easiest, and the hardest list, right? Then you need to look and
Yep.
see which ones you're going to get done for the day, right? And so with jiu-jitsu, you don't have time to think about your car. You can't do anything about your car right now. You're getting choked out, tap or get out of it.
Mhm.
So that it's really important, right? And so one of the biggest issues that veterans have is, the fourth principle is accept your past. That is the hardest thing for anybody to do because they think that accepting your past is being okay with your past. Like I'm not happy that my stepdad used to beat the shit out of me, but I accept the fact that it happened, right? And I have no control over it anymore, and there's nothing I can do about it, right? The only thing that I can do is become a better person because the best answer to any situation is become a better person. Because the better you are, the better you do for yourself, the more good you can do for the life, right? For yourself, for your family, your kids, or the world. So a lot of vets get out of the military and they lose sight of what they're doing, right? They have no idea what to do because every veteran gets out of the military and they're walking backwards because they're only looking at their past life, right? And so what happens when you walk backwards? You're gonna trip and fall.
So
So
you're not making progress forward. Yeah.
exactly, so instead of making progress harder, why don't you just stop, sit down for a second, and organize, right? Stop and think about all the things that may be causing you issues, right? And you have to go through all the traumas that have happened in your life and you need to organize them. Get them to the point where there's certain things that will never leave your side. So something I didn't even talk about was 2010, January 6th, 2010, I had a guy over in Iraq. He shot himself and I was first on scene, but he was still alive when I got there. Shot himself through the bottom of the chin, through the top of the head, and he was reaching out for help when I got there. So I walked over and he grabbed my hand. I put my hand on his chest and I just told him, just let go. I was like, there's nothing we can do. So he ended up passing. And I've seen him almost every single night for the last 10 years. So I accept the fact that I'm going to see Michael just about every night, right? But I've given reason to that. I think that every time Michael comes back is he's pushing me to actually go on with my mission to help veterans, right? To be the guy that can be there for the veterans who are struggling and they can reach out to any time of day and actually, be there for them, be that 3 a.m. friend. So once you actually take the time to accept your past, then once you're ready, you can actually, the fifth principle is look forward to a positive future. So I believe in manifestation, right? So if you actually manifest the future that you want, then you can be whoever you want. You have to do it though. It's not just like think it and it shall come true. No, get the fucking work, right?
Mhm.
So I decided that 2015, after my suicide attempt, that I was going to become the person who could have saved my life because I didn't think that person existed. So I said, fuck it. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to do the research and I'm going to become that person that could have pulled that gun out of my hands. Ironically, last year was 5 years. And ironically, I actually pulled a gun out of somebody's hand back in October. Went to his house, took it out of his hands, and actually had a really good conversation with him. Ended up going back to his house and taking the rest of them. But I actually talked him out of it, and he's doing really well now. That guy right there, I still get emotional about this shit because it's life or death, and I'm not afraid of emotion at all. I preach vulnerability is key. And so when I talk about stuff like this, it's not because I'm sad, it's because I'm proud, right? People think that being proud of yourself is a bad thing. I'm not supposed to be alive. And the fact that I have a second chance and I've created this person that can actually do these things, like take veterans around the country and actually get people to pull guns out of their mouths. And, I've talked people off of bridges at 911 dispatch because, people call 911 when they're getting ready to kill themselves. And I've talked 3 people out of killing themselves while at work, on top of the nonprofit, with the 3 a.m. like, dude, I'm going to fucking end it. And then next thing you know, we're sitting here laughing and joking. And then 3-4 weeks down the road, I see that fucker posting inspirational quotes on Facebook and stuff, It's like, it's so addicting, actually doing stuff like this. So if you create the person who you want to be 5 years from now, you can be that person, right? Unless it's like Superman and shit. We can't fly. Sorry, guys. But
Speak
if
for
you
yourself.
like I wanted to be somebody who people could rely on when their mental health is at its last rope. I want to be the guy that they can reach out to and say, hey man, I'm not fucking doing well, right? And so I have plenty of civilians call me too. They see some of my shit and they're like, look, dude, I'm not a veteran, but like I'm struggling. I was like, bro, it doesn't cost money for me to talk to people. I don't give a fuck if you're a veteran or not, right? I'm not going to advertise for everybody because I would never stop talking on the phone. But I'm never going to say no, and so it doesn't cost money to be a good person. So if you look forward to a positive future and you actually create something positive inside your head, all you have to do is grab that shit out of the air because thoughts are things, right? Napoleon Hill from Think and Grow Rich. Thoughts are things. All you have to do is grab them, pull them out of the air, and then mold it into be a tangible, touchable item, right? Warriors Next Adventure is everywhere now, right? We're nationwide, which is fucking awesome. The fact that some dumb kid from Minneapolis can just fucking create a nonprofit and everyone's like, how the fuck are you going to do a nonprofit? You don't know the first thing about business. It's like, yeah, but I'm going to learn, and then with this whole rant, you stop and think the sixth principle is often the most forgotten principle. But it's the reason why it's at the end is because most people do forget about it. But it's the most important is you have to love yourself. Self-care is the most important thing you can do in the world. Self-care is not selfish. Anybody who tells me that self-care is selfish is somebody who is a selfish person on their own, right? So if you get somebody who goes to jiu-jitsu and they're just like, I'm not doing well, man. I got to go to jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu does contribute to the progression of mental health. Absolutely 100%, right? We witnessed that with COVID over the last year and a half with all these people who couldn't train jiu-jitsu. I called it from the beginning, right? And I'm not going to get into the whole COVID thing, but I called it from the beginning. There's going to be more suicides. There's going to be more domestic abuse. There's going to be more negative that comes from this lockdown than there will be positive. I fucking promise you that. Suicides are on the rise. in the jiu-jitsu community, in the veteran community, in every community, suicides are on the rise, is because we don't have that human connection. Especially with all the jiu-jitsu guys, I will argue anybody to the end of the day that I will never stop training jiu-jitsu no matter what the fuck is happening, right? So speakeasy jiu-jitsu all the way. Um, so I'm just saying, like, your mental health is the most important thing in the world. And if jujitsu is the thing that really keeps you calm and makes you happy, then you need to love yourself. You need to actually do it, right? So I took these 6 principles and I wrote them over time, probably over the span of about 6 years, as I put these principles together. And I started telling veterans this. For some reason, every time I talked to a veteran about this, it made me feel good, right? So I had no intentions of just helping veterans, right? I just wanted to help myself. But the more and more I helped myself, the more and more I started spreading this word to other veterans and helping these guys realize that, listen, we can heal after war. We can heal after the military. You can choose to be a better person. You can choose to be happy, right? PTSD is something that doesn't really just go away. I still have nightmares. I still have my issues, but for the most part, I'm an extremely happy person because I found my purpose. So the main things that Warriors Next Adventure helps veterans with is sense of purpose, camaraderie, adventure. And then the two that I don't really help veterans with, but we talk about, is financial issues and relationships. Those are the 5 things that most veterans struggle with, right? I'm working on the financial side of things, but I got to do it myself first so I can actually be an example. The relationship stuff, I've been divorced twice, so I'm probably going to stay away from that.
Leave that up to somebody else.
Yeah, long story short, I got married. I met a girl in Brazil. She flew to the United States in 2016, got married. She left me in 2018. So long story short, it's whatever. No hard feelings. But the more and more I started doing this, the more veterans I talked to, and the better I felt about myself. So it's selfish. This whole nonprofit is selfish because every single veteran that I help, I get to see them start to improve their lives, and I get to steal a little bit of that happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't go and tell people, look at this guy. He's happy because I helped him. No, it's all internal.
Well, yeah, you're not patting yourself on the back. You're internalizing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, we post stuff on Facebook constantly, of course, because I believe in social media marketing. A, because it's free. B, because a lot of veterans are on it. So we use Instagram, YouTube. I started a podcast called Warriors Next Adventure Podcast. And the focus of that is getting veterans to actually talk and be vulnerable, right? Talk about your past, talk about your traumas, and actually be open about some of the struggles that you're going through. Because the more and more you do that, what you're doing is you're freeing yourself. You remember I told you earlier about, the boat, and you constantly throw all your struggles and your problems and your traumas at the bottom of the boat, and you're going to sink, right? You can always pull those out and throw them overboard. And that's when you start to talk about it. You start to share your feelings and actually express how you feel. Because what you're doing is you're releasing that power that those traumas have over you. I made a video on YouTube called Take Away the Power from Your Past and Give It to Your Future. And that's literally freeing yourself from the traumas of your past. And what that does is it frees you up to actually open up and look forward to a positive future, right? So it all ties together. My whole nonprofit is based off of those 6 principles. It's also based off of a lot of thoughts of Buddhism. We don't teach Buddhism. That's one thing I don't want people thinking that we're, doing that. Because a lot of vets hear Buddhism and they think like, voodoo, you're crazy. But it's all about self-reliance, accepting your past, believing in yourself, and believing that you can be a good person by manifesting a good future, right? That's the basis of Buddhism. Just fucking find out who you are.
Yeah.
I do teach veterans meditation. There's a lot of vets who have gone through my meditation series and they love it. There's a lot of vets that say it doesn't work for them, which it's fine. There's some people that meditation just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So what I did was I created this nonprofit in 2018 or 2019. Initially, it was just supposed to be a hiking thing. And then randomly somebody's like, hey, I have wolves. I'm like, oh my God, wolves are fucking awesome. So I went up there and we got to play with her wolves. They're hybrids. So they're wolf mixed with like shepherd or malamute or something. And they have like 15 wolves. So I was like, what do you think about doing some sort of mental health thing with veterans here with me? She's like, yes, please. So it's called Operation Wolf Dog at Minnesota Wolf Dogs. You can find them on Facebook. Minnesota Wolf Dogs. They have a house with a bunch of cages and everything behind their house. So what we do is we go up there, we help expand their fences, we build them dog houses. I personally got to go rescue one from Wisconsin Dells back in March last year. His name is Timber. He's my best friend. I love him. and he gets a little aggressive with other people. But I can go in his cage and like he jumps on me. He's happy. So wolves, when you become like family, like so what we do, we bring veterans up there and they become part of the pack because the wolves
I
treat
see.
them differently the more they meet them, right? And so that's
Right.
another family. So not only are you providing for something bigger than yourself because you're helping another animal have a better life, but they're also accepting you into their pack. When they start rubbing up against you and jumping on you, they also like to pick at your beard. So like if they're kind of being submissive towards you, they'll turn their head sideways and they'll lean up and they'll pick at your beard and they'll rip little pieces of your beard out. It sucks, but it's kind of like it's a playful thing. So I always tell people, if you got a beard, be careful. You're gonna rip that shit off. But that just means
We
they
need
like
to-
you.
We need to send Gary down there.
Yeah.
We have so what we do is we put a PayPal up every time we head up there, and I was like, hey, we're gonna stop by the pet store. So people will send us like $20-$30, like, hey, buy treats for the dogs, or buy some balls buy some stuff. And so we have one veteran. He's like, hey man, I want you to buy a pack of hot dogs, but I want you to feed the wolves by your mouth. So we want you to put the hot dog in my mouth.
No.
And so
I'll take my
there's a
chances
couple
with
of
them
these
picking in
wolves
my beard.
that I'm so close with. I just said, I was like, fuck it, why not? So I made a video of me feeding these wolves with hot dogs sticking on my mouth. One of them actually bit
I gotta
my-
look that
my
up.
nose a little bit. So it's a lot of fun. So that is one of my favorite programs. And then we also do what's called the WDA Top 50. So every year we climb a mountain somewhere in the United States. This year we're climbing Mount Massive in Colorado. That's August 11th. We're flying into Denver. We have a fundraiser at the Palmer Lake Pub. And then the next day we're going to this place called Mattersville, which is actually a wolf sanctuary and also a homeless veteran shelter. And then we're training jiu-jitsu. I hope at high altitude. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. And then the next day we're training in the morning at Team Chaotic, and then we're driving up to Leadville. And then Saturday we're climbing Mount Massive. So right now we have something out there. So the first 4 people to raise $1,000 on a Facebook fundraiser get to go, all expenses paid. So you got to be a veteran.
Wow.
That's the
Oh,
that's the only
nice.
thing. You have to be a veteran. So you go on Facebook, you make a Facebook fundraiser, you tell everybody, hey, if I raise $1,000, Warriors Next Adventure will fly me out, house me, and take me to go climb a mountain for the weekend. So we got 2 so far. We got 2 more slots open. So if anybody hears this, if you're a veteran, start a fundraiser.
Oh yeah, you guys got to
That's
jump on
wonderful.
this. This is ridiculous. This sounds so lot
Yeah.
of fun, and then obviously great opportunity to do.
Well,
all
it's a
this. And-
good way too, because you get your family involved, right? So your family knows that you're a veteran. You may be struggling a little bit, and these trips will change the way you think about your life. I promise you, right? But it'll only change your life if you decide to change your life from this.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is with Warriors Next Adventure is it's you. You are the one that needs to heal yourself.
Yeah.
And so this is the kind of stuff that we talk about on these trips. We have these kind of conversations constantly, right? There's also a lot of dick and fart jokes. We're veterans. We're stupid.
I'm sure
That way,
there
you
is.
know?
Listen, you're doing something related to jiu-jitsu. You're doing something actually very interesting, which I want to talk about. We are like way past our normal time.
Yeah, we
Gary-
haven't even talked about
Gary.
that. I'm sorry.
Gary's falling asleep, right? So we gotta
Not hardly. No.
listen. No,
Come
on a serious note, Nick. When you and I we talked originally weeks
Yeah.
ago, I called Gary and I was like, Gary, listen, this is going to be sick. And I was like,
Mhm.
very likely we won't fit this in the episode. Here we are.
And here we are.
So, but no, it's a good stuff. But talk quickly about the jiu-jitsu component of your nonprofit.
Sure. So we call it WNA BJJ, Warriors Next Adventure BJJ. So if you actually come to my gym, it's not my gym, my instructor's gym, called Tracks BJJ. So if you're in Minnesota and you train jiu-jitsu with us, if you actually sign up for a year at our gym, I will buy them their first gi. Right. So it helps out my coach because I buy his gi for them. And B, they have a Tracks BJJ gi, and then they get to train for free, for the month.
Win-win.
Yeah, it's great. So we partner with We Defy Foundation for this documentary. Because We Defy, if you don't know who they are, they actually pay for veterans who are 80% or more disabled to train jiu-jitsu for a full year. They're a wonderful foundation. Look them up. TJ Kreitzer is their VP, and Travis Larson is their president. Lots of great guys with that organization. I absolutely love them. And we teamed up for this documentary that I want to film. So you hear that phrase all the time, jiu-jitsu saved my life. How many times you guys heard that?
I said it.
Too many times, right? So it's like, nobody's really told those stories, right? So you have Jiu-Jitsu versus the World, which I think was a good documentary. And then you have like Choke. There's a couple of documentaries that are pretty good, but there's nothing out there about veterans and the positive effects of Jiu-Jitsu. There's some short videos here and there. Like We Defy has done a few things here and there, But I wanted to tell those stories. So I wanted to find veterans who had similar stories as me because I don't think I would be who I am as a person without jujitsu. I owe jujitsu my life. Upon other things, right? There's many other things that I used to heal, but I decided to put a post on a couple Facebook groups that are like military jujitsu groups. And I was just like, hey, I want to film a documentary and I want to do some interviews with some veterans. And so the jiu-jitsu community just 100% has backed me up on this. So I just want to say anybody in the jiu-jitsu community who has helped me with this, I fucking love you because this is going to be the most epic trip that we've ever taken as a nonprofit, but it's also going to be one of the most effective mental health tools for a lot of veterans who need something. So I decided to put together it's a 50-day tour, right? We bought a short bus and we're converting it into a camper van. So we got a bunk bed in the back, we got a bed on the side. We're actually taking a veteran with me, and he's gonna be my film guy. So he's gonna travel with me, and then every week I have a different veteran traveling with me. So in this whole tour, I think I'll take 9 different veterans with me on this tour. So we're starting in Minnesota, going to Montana. We got a few stops in Montana. We're going to Washington, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Florida, all the way to Vermont, Boston, Philadelphia, all over the place, right? So I think I added up, it's about 10,000 miles we're going to be driving. It's going to be insane. I think we got like 37 or 38 jiu-jitsu gyms. And like I said, if you want to work something out, Sunday, June.
That's not a nice round number. I think you need a couple more in there to get to like a nice round number.
But what is it? So June 5th is our last one up in St. Louis, but June 6th, I'm actually gonna be driving from St. Louis up to Minnesota. So I'll cut over to Chicago if you want to host the thing. If you want to do a Sunday roll.
Hey, listen, I'm game. Gary already knows I am not shy when it comes to inviting people over. So
awesome.
Let's figure out details. I would love to have you guys over, and would love to be part of this great project that you guys.
Oh God,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. So what we're doing is we're going to all these gyms, and I've pre-interviewed a bunch of veterans. So what we're doing is we're having open mat seminars, right? That's what we're calling them. I'm a purple belt. I'm not teaching these seminars, but it's the gym's way of promoting. Hey, this is our gym. This is our people, but we're also opening up to the public to try to get as many veterans in there who don't train jiu-jitsu to maybe get a shot. So my goal with this documentary is to actually get more veterans training jiu-jitsu, but also just more people training jiu-jitsu. So I always want to preface that no matter what I talk about, I focus on veterans, but this applies to everybody.
Absolutely.
Everybody. And these 6 principles apply to everybody. I don't care who you are. If you actually apply this stuff to yourself, it will help you. But you have to apply it. So I want to get as many veterans in there as possible to maybe take a look at jiu-jitsu and see if maybe this is an avenue that would help them heal. You're going to get the camaraderie. You're going to get the sense of adventure. You're going to get the sense of purpose, because the first time you get that little piece of tape on your white belt, that first stripe, there's nothing more addicting. Like, holy shit, I'm actually
changes
not bad.
Everything, doesn't it?
It does. One little piece of fabric just changes your world. Like when I got my purple belt, I got home that night, and I've been training since 2007, and I just got my purple belt, and I went and sat in my car and just stared at that fucking thing for like 20 minutes. Initially, I had nothing. There was no emotions, just staring at it. Like, it wasn't real, and then next thing you know, I just started thinking about all those tournaments I've done. I've done over 90 competitions or over 90 matches.
Wow.
So I've competed a lot. That's between like Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, stuff like that. So I'm almost at 100 total. It's like I've worked my fucking ass off for this. I have nearly 20, I think 30 total medals from different tournaments and stuff. So like I've worked hard for this thing,
Good for you.
and I had to go through all of that in my brain before I actually realized what the fuck I was holding in my hands.
Yeah.
And I was just like, Jesus Christ. And then I broke down for like 5 minutes.
I can only imagine when the brown and black come in the near future.
I can't imagine.
Hey,
But
listen.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're doing this for 50 days. So we're stopping at all these different spots. So if you go to warriorsnextadventure.com and you click on the More tab, you'll see the PTSD versus Jiu-Jitsu documentary. We also have a GoFundMe out there to help us get around the country because this shit is expensive. But we're actually sponsored by Rip It Energy. So veterans are going to lose their shit when they hear that. Long story short, Rip It Energy is those free energy drinks we got when we were overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan. So we love those things. We're sponsored by Freedom Fishing Foundation, the Bake Shop Treats, which is a CBD company. Freedom Fishing is a veteran nonprofit that takes veterans fishing. They're awesome. And then we're also sponsored by St. Croix Custom Furniture. He's actually helping us build the bus. So we got some good backers. Our gis, our rash guards, actually made by Fuji. They're wonderful. These guys did such a great job. So if you guys send me your address, I'll send you guys each rash guard. Those things are awesome.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
But yeah, so what we're doing is we're filming this thing. We're going to do an episodic series. So every gym is going to have its own episode on YouTube, but then we're going to actually cut it and do an actual documentary. So my goal is to have like an hour and 40-minute documentary. Knowing me, it's probably going to go long, like
a little
all
bit.
Of my interviews. It's me, so I talk too fucking much.
Hey, listen.
But yeah, it's going to be wonderful.
But I do feel like we should bring you back in like July when all of this is done.
For sure.
The dust settles, and then you can tell all the stories they are not in the documentary.
Yeah, we're hanging out with some cool people. Like Joe Lozon is hosting us in Boston, Dean Lister over in San Diego. We got Andy Stumpf up in Montana. We're hoping to get Dakota Meyer down in Texas. He also trains with Joe Rogan and Tim Kennedy, but that's probably not going to fucking happen.
Fingers crossed.
You can annoy the shit out of people with emails.
You never know.
I'm pretty sure Joe Rogan has blocked my email the amount of times I've sent him. Yeah, it's going to be a great time.
We got to wrap this up, but before we do, end of each episode, we do 5 questions that we didn't tell you about. We're going to run through them very quickly.
Okay.
And I want you to just rapid answers. The first thing that comes to your mind.
Gotcha.
Gary will take a lead on this, and then we can wrap this up.
We might have to change one of these. We'll change one of these, but all right. So what was it like the first time you stepped on the mat? And I know you did a lot of no-gi before that in the military. I'm thinking maybe like the first time in an academy stepping on a mat.
So the first time in an academy stepping on a mat was actually in 2009 when I got back from my first deployment to Iraq in 2008. I trained with Joe Lozon in Iraq. He did a USO tour, and he's like, "Hey, you need to focus on jiu-jitsu," because he tapped me out like 30 times in like 5 minutes.
Well, he's Joe. And that's what he does.
Yeah. But I went in there and like it was so intimidating, right? Everybody just looks so rude. But then you get those gis on, they just look so mean and like angry. But then you sit down on the mat and everyone's just laughing and chilling and like super cool. Like everyone was really welcoming. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. Felt like a brotherhood.
Beautiful. All right. What has been your most rewarding achievement?
My most rewarding achievement. Like in jiu-jitsu?
Doesn't matter. So
I would say 2017, which was actually, I'll do this quick. She was actually the first person I told that I tried to kill myself. So 2017, I was working at 911 dispatch, and I got a phone call saying that she said, "I'm going to kill myself." And so, okay, where are you? We have cameras. So I pulled her up on the camera. She was standing on a bridge. So not only am I looking at her standing on a bridge, getting ready to kill herself, I'm talking to her too. Come to find out she was a veteran. And so we talked for about 45 minutes, and I told her, like, listen, if anything happens today, I want you to get down. I was like, can I tell you something about myself? I've never told another soul. I was like, but in 2015, I actually tried to kill myself. And I was trying to figure out, why am I still here? That was the first time that I got a sense of what my mission is. And so I told her, I was like, maybe I'm here to save you. Maybe I'm here to help you. And so she ended up getting down, and I broke down pretty good that day, but I actually got a Chief's Commendation Award for that from the Colonel of the State Patrol. It's a life-saving award for civilians. That's probably the one thing that I've ever gotten that I actually truly hold dear to my heart.
Good for you.
That's beautiful.
Sorry to get emotional again.
No. Listen, your story is
kind of my theme.
Yeah. So this is the one we always ask. Describe your feelings when you received your black belt. Obviously,
how about
we're
we
not
do
there
your
yet.
purple belt?
Yeah, when we just touched on the purple belt. And so after looking at it for 5 minutes in the car, what happened?
After about 5 minutes, I sat there and I just kind of broke down. Like I started to think about all the competitions I've been through. I started to think about my jiu-jitsu coach, Mark. He's actually the only person to ever give me stripes or belts. I left that gym for about 2 years trying to do MMA and stuff, but I never got promoted, no stripes, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I came back to his gym, trained for about 6 months, and I got my next stripe. So Mark has given me everything. So Mark's like a father to me, right? And so the fact that he thinks that I am a purple belt level competitor, there was no that was the best pride feeling that I've ever had in jiu-jitsu. You know, it was like my dad giving me something, you know.
Good
I love
for
that
you.
guy.
That's awesome.
Have you ever wanted to quit?
Oh yeah. Fucking jiu-jitsu. I want to quit at least 3-4 times a year. It sucks. Getting ass kicked. You know, the problem is when you hit that low as a blue belt, right? So I was a blue belt for 6 years.
Yeah. I'm
I
right
wanted to
behind
quit.
you. I'm right behind you. I might beat it.
It was way too long. But yeah, like I see people surpassing me, and it's like, you know what? I believe that everybody's on their own mission. Everybody has their own jujitsu journey, right? You can't compare yourself to other people. But when you've been a blue belt for 6 fucking years and you're just like, God damn it, everybody's better than me. Yeah,
I remember when that guy signed up.
Yep. I know, right? I just posted a picture on my Instagram, and it's me and my friend Stefan. Stefan and I started at Trax at the same time. I had 7 years of experience. I got promoted to blue belt in 6 months, right? And he got promoted to blue belt after like a year or so. And then next thing you know, he gets his fucking purple belt. Yeah. I'm like, this motherfucker, he started after me.
Is he one of those guys that doesn't have a job that we talked about earlier? That all they do is train?
He's just fucking ridiculously smart. This kid just gets it. I'm just a little slow. I've had a few brain injuries, so I actually really do have a hard time putting things together. So I have to work through it a little harder than he does. But he's just better than me. Yeah. But now I got my purple and fucking.
That's right. Everything evened out. All right. And speaking of that purple belt, do you wash your belt?
So I jiu-jitsu dummies ask me the same question.
Oh, do they really? Damn it.
So I do, but the frequency is probably not what people want to hear.
Well, Gary keeps tally. So is it yes or no?
What's the date?
I would say yes, just because if that thing starts to get a smell to it, you know, there's got to be some shit on there. I'm pretty sure everybody who trains jiu-jitsu is immune to COVID because of the amount of shit that we go in contact with people's belts.
All right. Now we know we got, so should I give out the numbers? We never really give out the numbers, do we?
No, it's on our website.
Yeah, it's on the website. So check it out. But
yeah, well, for sure.
It's still more than 50% say no. So there we go. And
I used to not.
And if you listen to the show, there was a while where I was going back and forth, but I've kind of fallen on one side now, and that's where I'm at. I have been for a while. I'm not going to tell anybody what it is.
Of course not. We all can assume.
I'm going to let them guess.
Nick, listen, I mean, your story is mind-blowing. I really appreciate you hanging out with us. And sorry we kept you so long, but it's just intriguing to hear the up and downs of your life and turns left and right, and really you've gone in many different directions with, you know, this one simple purpose to really help people in a true meaning of it. And for that, I really want to say thank you for being there for all the guys out there who really need it. And I really do wish you the best of luck with your organization. And I'm really hoping that we can figure something out for the summer where you can come out and we can help the people in our surrounding area with, you know, with a backing of your organization. That would be, sure. I think it would be just simply amazing.
Yeah. June 6th is open, man. So if you guys want to do a Sunday roll, it's all you.
I checked the calendar. Thomas, there's not much on it. So,
there you go. Even if I don't want to, Gary is on it. I think we just announced this, didn't we? Oh,
I can't.
All right, I'll update the website today. Hey guys, seriously, I just want to say personally, thank you guys for having me come on, because you know, you guys having guys like me come on and let me use your platform to talk about healing and jiu-jitsu and trauma. This is shit that people don't want to talk about. So, you know, you guys are allowing me to talk about these kind of things. And every episode that I do something like this, I usually get a veteran that reaches out. So you guys quite possibly could have just helped me help a veteran. So I appreciate you guys and what you do. Plus, I love your podcast. The one with Chris Howder is one of my favorites. So.
Chris is an awesome guy. Chris is awesome guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's my hero. He's only got like 7 years on me, but like I said, I think during the episode, I want to be like him when I grow up. Thank you so much. Thank you for your openness, because I think that is a huge part of it. When people can hear people with similar stories step out and say those things, I think that gives them a lot of hope and gives them courage to do the same. So thank you very much for that. And Thomas, Chris, or I'm sorry, Nick, where can people find you?
So very easy. Everything is Warriors Next Adventure. We got YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We also have a LinkedIn. I don't use that enough. But we also have Twitter too. I think that's @Next Warrior or something like that. But I run everything. So I have a good board. I have a good ambassador team, but I personally run everything because the whole point is to get veterans to reach out to me so we can talk. So if you reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff, it's all going to be me. So I do have one of the guy that helps, but it's rare that he ever beats me to anything because I'm always watching, always looking, just in case people need help.
Wonderful.
Well, and we'll make sure to put all of the links in the show notes right sure. below. So if you want to guys check it out, just click on that and it'll take you right in. And Nick, thanks for being here. Thanks for talking to us. Thanks for opening up and sharing your story. And hopefully we're going to be talking again in July. I really want to hear what. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
All right. Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Raw Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.